Springfield Talk 1041. Hello, everyone. Good Monday morning. My name is Nick Reed. Hope everyone's doing wonderful as we kick off the week. We'll find out what to expect in terms of weather. Hopefully, it is going to be much better. Maybe even some rain. It sounds like quite possible we'll get some of that. But Sarah will fill us in a couple of moments there. The continued battling between the Trump administration and some of these Democrat governors and mayors that refuse to improve the quality of life and safety for the citizens, particularly people of color, just continues to escalate horrifically. It was revealed over the weekend that while ICE agents were coming under attack by violent left-wing activists, the local police who were called in to assist were told to stand down and instead leave the ICE agents in danger's way. There was an attempt to try to deny it, but internally there have been a number of whistleblowers within Chicago police saying that they're just trying to cover their backsides at this point, that they were in fact told, despite how dangerous it may have been and the attacks they were under, to allow them to continue to be under attack. Federal agents in a number of jurisdictions are continuously finding themselves put in harm's way, and the call for backup is going refused. There was a judge that just denied Trump's move to take the California National Guard and utilize it in order to protect federal facilities and ICE agents up in, I believe it's Portland. This is clearly going to be overturned. This idea that the federal government cannot protect federal employees. You know, the left is just hysterically contradictory. When it comes to government shutdowns, they will so oftentimes squall about the federal employees and the plight of these federal employees that are temporarily not going to get paid or, God forbid, even get laid off. You see these news stories about federal employees, and there was one division within the government at one point that video was released of they were crying and as they were exiting the building, they were being comforted and being applauded as if they were some sort of heroes. And so in that context, federal employees are like the greatest, most honored and revered individuals in the world. But when they are coming under attack and their lives are in danger because of Democrat activists, and local law enforcement is told you cannot protect them, and then the Trump administration says, okay, well, these are federal assets. These are federal employees in federal buildings, so we will utilize federal National Guard, the federal authority to utilize National Guard to protect them. And then suddenly those federal agents, well, those aren't significant individuals. Those people deserve what they get. After all, they're the Gestapo. They're Nazis. And this concept that if you are a federal agent or work for the federal government in the United States of America, currently at least, these Democrat-run jurisdictions, you deserve no protection whatsoever. And they go to court. Think about for whom they are going to court. On whose behalf? The domestic terrorists who are trying to murder these federal agents. They had to arrest a woman in Chicago, used her vehicle. Well, there were two arrests, a male and a female, and she tried to use her vehicle in order to apparently kill as many ICE agents or Nazis or Gestapos, according to the left, as possible. She had a firearm on her. These are the left-wing activists that the Democrats have activated. And then they give them the additional assist of refusing local law enforcement protection of federal agents, or they do what they can to go to the courts to block the president from utilizing federal assets to protect those federal employees. You know, there's been this sort of somewhat rhetorical conversation over the years about a civil war, coming to a civil war. We had a civil war. And of course, even if it is in political terms, a discussion about we're at war from anyone from the Trump administration, the media jumps all over it. For example, when Trump talked about, it being a war zone in Chicago or declaring war on crime in Chicago, the media gets into a frenzy. Are you saying you're declaring war on the city of Chicago? Stupid questions. But when it comes to a civil war, I've often noted that, there's in our country, historically, a civil war, we were talking about armed individuals shooting at each other, different divisions or, different government entities fighting against one another, as opposed to sort of this concept of a civil war in which we're just so torn apart politically that you've got perhaps constitutional issues at hand and so forth. But what we are seeing with the Democrats, they are stepping up what is much more in line with the concept of a civil war in terms of armed government action against armed government action. When you have individuals that are activists, and clearly coordinated activists, using weapons, whether they are bricks, incendiary devices, automobiles, firearms, in order to try and kill government officials that they see as an extension of Donald Trump. And then you have Democrat-run government entities that are going to court to try to prevent Trump from protecting those individuals. They are, at least from what we are learning about Chicago, actively telling that law enforcement to stand back, to stand down, and not step in whenever the quote Trump government officials come under attack. The Democrats are escalating this to a point, though not obviously as widespread and official as the Civil War we had in the 1800s. But we're getting dangerously close to a place here in which you have the Trump administration that is just, by the way, enforcing the law. That's all that this is. This isn't Trump making up a new law. This isn't Donald Trump just arbitrarily deciding that he wants to use law enforcement or National Guard just to do things at his whim, to create new states or new cities, new municipalities. It's the law, not a law that even he created. These aren't laws that he arm-twisted Congress to sign under duress so that he could have his way. These are laws that have been on the books for a very long time. Part of being president of the United States is swearing that you're going to uphold these laws. He's doing what he's supposed to do. He's doing what he swore he would do. And to have Democrat elected officials assisting armed citizens in attacking ICE agents, any form of federal law enforcement. Listen, I don't want to blow things out of proportion here, but with the conversations about civil war, this is the sort of thing that is the beginning of when you look down the road in retrospect. This is how this stuff starts. And I think we need to be very clear in understanding. The Democrats are the ones who are doing this. And for what end? so that black people continue to live in more dangerous neighborhoods than their affluent, white, rich, liberal donors? So that their cities are still filled with individuals that have themselves believing they are completely reliant on government and they can't make it on their own, that they are slaves to the system? It would be a different situation if we were talking about areas of the country in which the standard of living was higher than anywhere else. The education levels in terms of actual outcome was higher than anywhere else. The income gap was smaller than you found in any other part of the country. But we're talking about the most dangerous, the areas of the country that are the biggest demonstrations of government failure. This is what they're protecting? We've got weather coming up here in a moment. Also, the latest traffic. Pyramid Roofing Company text line 417-447-KSGF. Now the latest news.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 84. We will also see a slight chance of isolated showers after 3 p.m. Tonight cloudy with a low around 62. For your Tuesday, mostly cloudy with a high near 76. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny with a high near 77.
On our hardscapes.com premier landscaping service in Ozark, or in the Ozarks rather, not just landscaping. Of course, I mentioned so much about the hardscaping aspect because the outdoor living space is what they created for me and so many of you as well. But the landscaping component to this is something that they do at a premium also. And the integration of lighting and if you want any water features or sound, really creating an outdoor living space. That I read to you a review, I think it was last week, and it was a area couple that had some work done, and they noted that it was just beyond expectations, and it's literally their favorite, quote, room in the house now is the outdoor area that was created by Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor. It is something you need to plan ahead. This isn't a weekend job where they're going to get signed up and then we'll be there in a couple weeks and they'll measure off a few things and then go to the big box store, pick up the supplies, and start. Their product is premium, not available in the stores like they are to, for people like you and me. So, of course, there's customized ordering and then prep time. It takes a bit. So, if you are wanting maybe as we get into spring to have this as an addition, or you're building a new home and you want to have it from the get-go, I'd go ahead and reach out to them now and get that planning going. HunterHardscapes.com. You can also find them, KSGF.com. Nick's endorsements. I want to talk a bit about the peace deal that was announced last week, I believe it was. Netanyahu, Trump, they come out. Trump's like, got a peace deal, like 20 points or whatever. And essentially, it is the elimination of Hamas and any of these current entities that have been running that portion, that region of the world. Among other things, release of hostages and so forth. Essentially, what this peace deal does is if it were, or if it does, find success and everyone agrees to it, that region of the world will look the same as if Hamas were completely destroyed. This is an agreement of self-destruction for Hamas. Hamas would be irrelevant. Its existence in order to abide by this deal is to stop existing, just quit existing. And there have been numerous instances over time, going back previous administrations, in which there have been these peace deals, and then you get the Palestinian side that balks at it as usual, and the Israelis are the ones that time after time after time after time have said, okay, we'll agree to this. It's part of the frustration for those of us who understand how this is played out and recognize that Israel is always the one that says, okay, it's so maddening. These people on the left, domestically and internationally, that act as if Israel just needs to stop. Israel is the country that has said, we will stop, we will sign this agreement. It is the Palestinian Authority, it is Hamas, it is the decision makers of the people of Gaza who are the ones that constantly refuse. So what makes this deal different? Now, I don't believe that Trump and the Trump administration sees this as something, though Hamas is like, yeah, we kind of agree to it in principle, but let's talk about this stuff. And, of course, they're like, okay, yep, they're moving forward on this. Sounds pretty encouraging. Hey, I think maybe we have a deal. I don't believe that Trump or Marco Rubio as Secretary of State, and we're going to play some audio of him coming up here in a moment, actually believe that that is realistic. Though if it happens somehow, hey, that's great, right? This has been crafted in a way, however, that I believe Trump sees as either which way, the outcome is going to be the same. If Hamas agrees miraculously to their own dissolution, then okay, that's fantastic. But if they don't, the way that this agreement has been written up, we're going to end up with the same outcome. And Trump is doing something brilliant here that he has, that was part of the success in the formula of the Abraham Accords, and that is isolating Hamas. See, this peace deal is not simply a peace deal between Hamas and the Israelis. All the other countries in the region have signed on it as well, onto it as well. This is the brilliance of Trump, bringing them all in. So if Hamas decides, no, we're not going to do this, they're not just rejecting the outreached hand of Israel, saying we're ready to make this peace deal. They are also rejecting the outreached hand of a peace deal with all of these other countries that have long sort of just sat on the sidelines while this stuff played out, or even in some instances were outwardly supportive of Hamas and their efforts. Trump has crafted a scenario in which all of these other countries have some skin in the game now. And the agreement that is like, hey, yeah, they can. I mean, we'll get the Israeli forces will get out of there. The Palestinian people will have everything that they want. But in order for that to occur, Hamas has to cease existing. So that also is creating a separation between the Palestinian people and Hamas. Ideally, it would be wonderful if the agreement was something that Hamas like, yeah, you know what, we're tired of all this stuff after all, and hey, we said this is what we wanted, and they're going to give it to us, so hey, it's time to retire. Let's just go travel the world and take cruises the rest of our lives. Not realistic. But in rejecting it, they're not just rejecting a peace deal with Israel, but all of these others that they have relied on to be supporters of theirs. Trump has strategically realigned all of the players. It's what he did with the Abraham Accords as well, in which he crafted these scenarios in which Israel's peace and security was beneficial and advantageous to these other countries that were being brought to the table for the Abraham Accords. And so it was beneficial for these other countries to see Israel succeed and to see Israel continue to exist. Trump crafted with the Abraham Accords scenarios in which Israel's self-interest became the self-interest of these other countries. And that's the same thing that is occurring with this agreement. I'm going to play some Marco Rubio audio. He was on ABC yesterday morning, and they don't come right out and say this, but the way that he talks about it, it is very clear that is exactly what is going on here. So that coming up, Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company, text line 417-447-KSGF. Going to get that traffic update. Then Marco Rubio talking realistically about the quote peace deal between Hamas and the Israelis. That next.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 84. Tonight, cloudy with a low around 62. For your Tuesday, mostly cloudy with a high near 76. And Wednesday, sunny with a high near 77.
All right. So Marco Rubio was on ABC talking about this peace deal, the potential, or well, it is a peace deal, whether or not Hamas signs on for it. And at first glance, I think it's easy to look at this and be like, it seems like we're doing the same thing over and over again. Trump is smarter than this. One of the reasons for Trump's success throughout life is he recognizes that when a particular approach does not work, you try a different approach. And there have been so many instances of these peace deals between Israel and between Hamas or the Palestinian Authority, and it turns out the exact same every single time. Hamas will reject it out of hand, or AKA Palestinian Authority, or they will accept some of it and then utilize it in order to drag it out so that they can continue to rebuild and get concessions and so forth. So why when Israel is continuing to go after successfully so much of the Hamas leadership, would Trump say, okay, well, let's do a peace deal now? I believe the crafting of this, well, I know the crafting of this peace deal is different than the crafting of past peace deals because this involves all the other countries in the Middle East. So this isn't Hamas just screwing over Israel if it decides to not participate, or if it decides they're going to pretend to participate but back out. But it is further creating conflict and alienation by the Trump administration between Hamas and the whole of the Middle East, not just Israel. Now, here's Marco Rubio talking about, he's being very realistic about what is going to be one of the tremendous obstacles in this. But what's important is some of the language he uses.
As long as there's a threat emanating from Gaza against Israel's security, be it Hamas or some successor organization, as long as there are people, organizations inside of Gaza who possess rockets, build tunnels, want to kidnap, murder, and rape Israeli citizens and attack Israel, there isn't going to be peace. Everyone knows this, including the Arab countries in the region, which is why they all signed on to this deal put forward by President Trump that deals with the fact that what Israel wants, what we want, what the deal envisions, what the countries in the region envision is a Gaza that's run by Palestinian technocrats and Palestinian civil servants and Palestinian leaders that do not pose a threat to Israel. If there is a threat emanating from Gaza, you're not going to have peace here that's sustainable. So that has to happen. That demobilization has to happen.
The mentioning by Marco Rubio of all of the other countries being signed on to this is significant. This isn't just something that is symbolic. This is making it about all of them. The reason Trump has been so successful at being a deal maker is because everyone that is involved in any capacity, he has this ability to see, okay, what can be in it for them? What scenario can be created to where they want to be part, they want this deal to work out? A reason that so many peace deals end up not working out is because when you have an outside entity that is attempting to bring the sides together and work out a peace deal, the benefit is always, well, you just stop fighting. That's the way, right? Because, well, nobody wants to be fighting. And so, hey, let's come together. And then that's just ultimately what both sides get out of it. But Trump recognizes if that's all that it took, they wouldn't be fighting in the first place. So he looks at the landscape and figures out ways to incorporate scenarios in which there is additional benefit outside of the peace itself. To where the country's like, oh, if we stop fighting, well, yeah, I mean, the stop fighting part's great and all, but we're going to benefit in this, and we're going to benefit over here, and these are going to be new benefits we had never thought of. This is how Trump managed in not even a year into his administration, like the first 6 months, juggling everything else under the sun. He's got 7 different peace deals, peace agreements between countries, some of which have been warring for 30 years. I mean, what an incredible lesson that can be learned from that. And it's so unfortunate because of this derangement that so many people have on the left, and even those that don't necessarily have a derangement against Trump, but they fancy themselves to be the brilliant ones, and so they just dismiss these peace deals as, well, it's no big deal, or well, he just got lucky. You don't craft peace agreements between warring countries, half a dozen of them, just because all of a sudden they're like, hey, this sounds like something fun. In every one of those instances, Trump creates benefit that wasn't there before. And when it comes to the Middle East, the problem there is what Hamas wants is all of the Jews gone. So he recognizes that the formula of creating a peace deal in which both sides get, some of these amazing things that they want, that doesn't work on Hamas, because Hamas just wants all the Jews dead. And they want there to be no Israel. So what do? Well, you create benefit, you isolate them. You take a scenario in which currently Israel is their only enemy, and you turn everyone else into an enemy of theirs. And that's why Trump brought all of them on board, getting them to be part of this so that they have skin in the game on this thing. Marco Rubio, and here's another portion of his conversation with Martha Raddatz on ABC, just regarding the deal itself. But this is where he's, again, being realistic about the likelihood of whether or not this is going to be accepted and followed by Hamas. But the important thing is if you listen to him, he is just making it clear in his verbiage that this isn't Hamas versus Israel or a deal between Hamas and Israel, but it is Israel along with all of the Middle East.
No one here is claiming this is done. What we are claiming is that we have moved so we are at a much better place today than we were 7 days ago. A lot could happen wrong here, but so much could happen right if we can get this done. And we're very dedicated to making that happen. And look, it's not just the United States, although this is an initiative that President Trump deserves a tremendous amount of credit for, but it's Qatar, it's the UAE, it's Israel who's been involved in these talks, it's Saudi Arabia, it's Indonesia, it's countries like Egypt and Jordan and other countries from the region, all of whom are pushing hard and are behind this effort. We all want to see it get done, and I think that collective pressure can make this happen. I'm optimistic it will happen, but it won't be easy.
I mean, when you understand what Trump's doing, it's just so brilliant. On one hand, it is brilliant, but on the other hand, it just makes so much sense. It's an amazing thing, human behavior, and something that in reality, when you look at it, it's so clear and it makes so much sense. Yet, he seemingly is the only world leader in our lifetimes that has managed to figure this thing out or is willing to actually activate and utilize this approach. I also understand that it takes us, obviously, a certain degree. There's a talent component there. Even if you understand the concept, that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to implement it as Trump is able to. So he's got the recognition of what makes this stuff work and the ability to carry it out. But it's just such an unfortunate thing in the whole concept of humanity and history that this does not get appreciated. And it's unfortunate because we are talking about massive peace deals, and only God knows how many lives end up being saved because of these peace deals. And again, not just talking about this particular one at hand, but the 7 that have occurred during the first 6 months of his administration. I mean, some of these countries, thousands and thousands and thousands of people are being slaughtered every year. And Trump's recognition, and Marco Rubio gets it, obviously. He's so good at this. Out there. And when you listen to him talk, he's talking about this just being Israel and Hamas. He's like, no. This is UAB. This is Indonesia. This is Egypt. And he's just listing off all these countries, and it is making Hamas smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And that is going to be, or it will have an impact on the Palestinian people. Because before and currently, they see this as Hamas versus Israel. That's the culture. That's their understanding. That's what they have been conditioned to believe, that Israel is the bad guy. Everyone knows it. Everyone in the Middle East knows it. This is why nobody likes Israel. But what they are going to be experiencing, and whether this is beginning to seep in or not, is that Israel, in their recognition, I mean, because this is going to become, and this is part of, I think, what Marco Rubio and Trump is doing, making it palatable, that Israel is not the odd man out. So for the Palestinian people who have believed Israel, they are the real problem. Everyone knows it. That's why everyone's on our side. Suddenly they are going to be recognizing that you have the entirety of the Middle East saying, oh, here's a deal. And by the way, this deal means Israel's removing their forces. You guys get to run your own government and everything. Now, Hamas can't be part of it, but you, the Palestinian people, will be the ones running it. That's a whole different perspective if you're a Palestinian. Because all of a sudden, everyone is on the same page, including all of these Middle Eastern countries, about you. And Israel's on the same page about you, the Palestinians, running your own country. So who's the one that's stopping it? See, the perspective of exactly who and what Hamas is and does is going to change in all likelihood with this, just the existence of the deal. And that's going to further put a divide between the Palestinian people and Hamas. And, you see the polling and, the very high percentage of people in Gaza that say they're supportive of Hamas. Well, we also know Hamas, they slit the throats of enemies and throw gays off the top of the building. So you can understand why maybe, here in America, people lie to pollsters. You can see how perhaps you have some of, these people in the Middle East, or in Gaza rather, that tell, CNN when they call up, or whatever the outfit is, to get their gauge on how they feel about Hamas, that they're more than willing to say, oh yeah, nope, totally, 100%, yep, Hamas, and make sure you let them know that we are 100% behind them. But if they begin to feel as if they have the support of all those other countries, there's a little sense of security, a little sense of a little more protection, a little more boldness, perhaps. I don't believe the effectiveness of this deal itself is viewed by the Trump administration is going to be an acceptance and adherence to the deal by Hamas. But I think the existence of the deal itself is what the Trump administration sees as the most likely path to Hamas being completely rejected, to the point that they are no longer accepted even by the Palestinian people. To the point that these instances in which they utilize their own people as human shields or kill their own people, because in the past they have relied on other countries standing by quietly when they lied and claimed that it was the Israelis that do it. And that isn't to say that, sometimes you don't have those sorts of things occur in which, whether intentional or otherwise, I'm not saying that Israel is absolutely perfect 100%, but we all know that part of the weaponry that is used by Hamas is the killing of their own people, because they have been able to use that as propaganda against Israel. Well, this shift may make that less relevant. We may find these Middle Eastern countries that have signed on to this agreement to start saying, no. This is Hamas doing this. The existence of this deal itself is what I believe Trump sees as the eventual, or at least most likely, pathway to lead to ultimate peace in the Middle East, not because everybody signed on to it, but because it marginalizes and eventually extincts out Hamas or any other terrorist organizations that want to be in charge of that region of the world. One of the added bonuses of this peace deal between Hamas and Israel is the left's reaction to it. And it's clear they think that there may be some success here. Now, they don't see the potential success in the clarity of recognizing exactly what's going on. But the fact that Hamas is like, oh, yeah, we kind of like some of this, that is the reason that they believe this may be a success. They're misjudging that aspect of it. But listening to this is a panel on CNN talking about this, and it just gives you such insight into their derangement when it comes to Donald Trump.
It's a major victory for him. Look, it is challenging to actually hear that piece of, Trump potentially being the one to get the ceasefire deal. But I think what we are seeing now is that a lot of people are tired of the devastation that's happening to the Palestinian people. And so how do we figure out a path forward? And so I would be interested to understand President Trump's interest in this, because he has said some things that are very harmful to the Palestinian people. I don't know, what his motivations are.
He wants the war to end. I mean, he wants the war. He wants.
That's what he wants. But I don't think
he wants the war to end for a lot of reasons. Some of them are political reasons. He wants that Nobel Peace Prize. Some of them are that I do think that whatever you think of Trump, he does not like the idea of all the death and destruction. But
well, at least she gave him that. So I just love the one gal said that it what did she say, disturbs her, just to hear that this peace deal may come about under Donald Trump. What sort of sick minds think that way? And then the sitting there, I just can't figure out why. What's his game here? It'd be interesting to try to figure out what his motivation is. I mean, we know he wants that Nobel Peace Prize, but what else is going on here? Hey, I know this is just you psychopaths. Trump isn't Hitler. Trump isn't a dictator. Trump actually just wants to see peace in that region. This is how deranged these people have become. They can't even comprehend that Trump is doing this simply because it's the right thing to do. Going to jump over to traffic. I'm Nick Reed. I want a great homeloan.com. All of your home loan needs. Farm Fest saw, was it Saturday, Anthony Carricker there? He was, he was there with the family. And he is, of course, there's Anthony, there's Alex, and they do have an entire team. And whatever those needs may be, even just information, I know we are traditionally accustomed to these big mega entities that really don't want to mess with you too much unless you're ready to go and sign on that dotted line so that they can make their money, which, they're businesses. I get it. Or it's supposed to be really easy and fast, but you're on your own because it's done online and you're lost. And any questions you have, you can chat, in the bottom right-hand corner, want to chat. You're talking about home loans. You're talking about refinancing. You're talking about reverse mortgages. These are very, very big things. And it shouldn't be something in which you are left to your own devices or where they only have interest in getting you to sign the dotted line as quickly as possible, and that's the approach that the characters have and the belief system they have. It's about helping you make the right decisions and being as informed as possible. So utilize them as a resource just for any questions you may have. And then when the time comes, if you are ready for any of those services, you've got the relationship established. iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do. We should have Congressman Burleson in the upcoming hour. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. Springfield's Talk 104.1. My name is Nick Reed, and I would like to welcome you to the show, everyone. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. Especially thank you for all of you that came by and said hello during Farm Fest. I had made a comment during the show with Brad Pistol as I filled in or hijacked your show at 10 o'clock on Saturday. That on Friday, so I would go around and I would record audio with all of our different partners. And then oftentimes I would come back to where we were set up and I would sort of edit it and put it into our system, upload things so that it could quickly air back instead of trying to do it all exactly live because there's so many things that can go wrong. Just record it just a bit ahead of time and then schedule it in during a commercial break so that it plays back. And also do that just in case there's a need for editing, because oftentimes when you are talking with people that aren't used to being on the radio, that can be required. That being said, there was not a single person. I did not have to edit out anything that anyone said.
Isn't that nice?
I'm telling you, as many people as I talked to, and as many people that were like, I do not want to do this. I'm not good at this at all. It's just like every single person. It was amazing. Well, anyway, I know, and I'm very grateful that a lot of you would come up and I would be editing while talking with you. And afterwards, I thought that probably looked like I was only half interested in talking to you, but I just have to ask you, please forgive me. Because I'm used to editing while talking to people. And so I forget that isn't the best way to have a conversation with someone sometimes. And I just had to get it done. So I could have hidden away and did it without any distractions, but I didn't want to miss the chance to talk to anyone. So if anybody did come up and was kind enough to chat with me and I seemed distracted because of that, all I can do is just ask that you forgive me for that. And I don't know. It was kind of bothering me for whatever reason. Maybe I'm making something out of nothing, but so I guess that's just the point I was going to make.
You started it with
what did I start it with?
You started it with the fact that you hijacked my show.
Well, yeah, but I think because I was just going to thank people ultimately for coming up and talk about how great it was to talk with so many of you, and that's the thing I really love most about that is getting to meet a lot of people that I've never met before.
I love station events.
I do too.
I really do.
So thank you again for those that came up and chatted with me. I really do appreciate it. I want to remind you, today is the last day for the green tag sale for all of the family-owned Pinnaker facilities across the area. We've got Branson, we've got Republic, and of course Pinnaker Honda. This is their first ever green tag sale, and it kicked off Friday. It was Saturday, and today is the last day. Every one of the lots, every one of the vehicles has a green tag on it with lower than ever prices. Now, if you think, well, I'll just go online, check it out. The price that you see is not going to be the price on the green tag. It's going to be higher when you look online. It's going to be regular pricing. So point being is, if you want to check out what the deals are, you do need to go buy one of those lots today, those 3 stores. They are also going to have on hand appraisers that are going to make sure that you get top dollar for your trade-ins. When they kicked this off, there were over 900 vehicles to choose from. Obviously, it's not going to be quite that many at this point, but I'm sure there's still probably something for you to find. And everyone who takes a test drive will be automatically registered to win an 85-inch TV at each of the 3 different locations. So I just wanted to remind you, if you weren't able to make it, or maybe you didn't hear about it, as we have been talking about it, any of those Pinnaker locations, Branson, Republic, and again, Pinnaker Honda in Springfield and South Campbell, today is the final day for that first ever green tag sale event. So be sure to stop by and check it out. Congressman Burleson, we should be chatting with him coming up here in just a couple of moments. One of you had texted in asking me to ask him, like, why can't something be done about these federal judges? Is there anything Congress can do? I know most recently, federal judge blocks Trump's National Guard deployment to Portland amid constitutional challenge, in which apparently, at least according to this judge, federal employees have absolutely no protection whatsoever. You are on your own. Because what we're seeing in many of these jurisdictions, Portland being one of them, the local law enforcement is operated in a manner that allows for the Democrat activists to physically attack them. And when Trump says, okay, well, they have to have some protection, and they are federal employees, so we'll send in the National Guard, you have Democrats saying no. We don't want them to have that protection either. And in this case, a judge saying, nope, they can't protect them either. So it's literally free reign. It's free for all, and just track down and attack as many federal employees as you want. You get no protection, at least according to this most recent federal judge. So why is it Congress isn't or is unable to do anything about these judges? I'll ask Congressman Burleson about that. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 84. Tonight cloudy with a low around 62. For your Tuesday, mostly cloudy with a high near 76. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny with a high near 77.
Streaming live, KSGF.com. We also, of course, are on YouTube. You can find us and watch us / listen to us there. Springfield's Talk 1041. Congressman Burleson is with us. And I'd like to start off, one, because it has been in the news, but also a question coming in regarding federal judges and, just asking, why is it that there's no legislation coming up to control their power? They noted, I thought the Supreme Court stopped federal judges from blocking Trump for everything, and I think this may have been prompted by the federal judge blocking Trump's National Guard deployment to Portland. So I guess you have an answer to that question?
We did pass a bill. I believe Andy Biggs was the sponsor from Arizona that limited, legislatively it limited their any kind of decision that a U.S. attorney makes to the district that they are occupying. I think that's what the courts, even though our bill didn't pass, I think it was good that the Supreme Court stepped in and basically said the same thing, which is why I haven't looked into the details of where this judge is from or this and what their authority is, but it may be that they're over that district.
Well, and I think what a lot of people sense, as I do, is it just seems like so many of these judges, they almost know what they're doing is unconstitutional, that their rulings do not have merit, but that's not their goal. Their goal is just to try and make it more difficult for Trump to do things he's constitutionally allowed to do, because then he'll be able to do less of them. And so that's really, they're just roadblocks. Because, listen, I'm not an attorney, but it seems inconceivable to me that you can say that there's no federal ability to protect federal employees and federal property. And that seems to be what's being said here by this judge.
I would imagine, you're right. What they do is if they're liberal and they want to stop something, even if they know it's unconstitutional, to do it just in order to throw a wrench into the machine and then make it difficult, make it take longer in order to enact what you're trying to accomplish. So what we need to figure out a way to bring accountability to judges, to make people like this have to face the repercussions of these very heinous Supreme Court decisions. Like that, we need to be able to have some way of recalling a judge.
Is that a matter of legislation?
It might be. So happy to look into that and see what we can come up with.
Oh, I want to ask you something. This is way off in left field from some of the other questions I wanted to ask you today, but it's something that I've just dealt with a great deal of frustration, and I'm like, I need to ask Congressman Burleson this one day. But of course, we got the Obamacare and the subsidy situation, which I'll ask you about in a moment. But to me, one of it's so wrong, it makes me seethe with rage, is the fact that we are not allowed to just purchase, as best I've been able to figure out, catastrophic health insurance. And
that's right.
And it's just so inconceivably immoral to me, because I'll give you just the real life example that there are a number of these family doctors that have these practices that go back to the old school way of doing things to some degree. You pay a monthly fee, and then you need to see a doctor, and you see that doctor in a day. You need labs. It's just so much better in terms of service, and it is so much less expensive. Well, and so my wife had said, why aren't we doing that? Well, the problem is I've got, she says, then we can just get catastrophic health insurance. And I said, you can't. Obamacare made that illegal. We can't do that. So that means I'm in a position that if we want to go the route of getting better treatment by signing up with one of these family doctors that do the subscription situation. But at the same time, I have to pay for regular health insurance through my company. I mean, they pay for part of it, but hundreds of dollars comes out of my paycheck and every paycheck in addition to what they do. And it's just, and it screws people over. And I think it also suppresses that particular industry, because there are a lot of people like me who would like to go the route of the subscription monthly family doctor, but we don't, because of the scam way that it's set up. Of anything and everything I wish that would be changed, it would be that we could purchase just catastrophic health insurance as American citizens.
You're preaching to the choir. In fact, as the Democrats are trying to, create this political pressure to extend the Obamacare, enhanced subsidies.
Right.
These are the subsidies that were on top of the subsidies that were already existing on Obamacare, and really these subsidies make it so that more wealthy people, that Obamacare is affordable to more wealthy people, but to the cost of the taxpayers of hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. So we can't afford it. It doesn't really actually bring down the cost of healthcare. And the reason is because, to your point, the consumer doesn't really have any choice in where they consume healthcare. You don't have a choice in which you're basically your employer, and who they pick as your insurance carrier has already decided for you. And your employer has picked which PBM policies you're going to have, your pharmacy benefit manager, which means which pharmacies you can get your prescriptions, which means what types of pharmaceuticals that you can get, and it's on and on and on. So all of these decisions are taken away from the person who's actually receiving the health care. And as a result, why would you provide affordable care or a good product? Why do you care if the patient is happy, or if you make them wait in the lobby for an hour, right? It doesn't matter, because they're not paying the bill. So, to your point, we've got to get back to that. And I think what we need to do is what I'm trying to do is draw a line in the sand and say, one, to the speaker, and I've reminded our House leadership and the White House that there is not any universe that a Republican can vote, or the Republican Party can vote, to extend these Obamacare subsidies when every pro-life group is rating them as an anti-life vote, because you're funding abortions with taxpayer money. So if you're going to do anything, now it's yours, right? If we're going to do something, and you're not going to get any Democrats to vote for it, you might as well reform healthcare. And that's why myself and Chip Roy are working with Gary Palmer and some others. Jason Smith has been great to have some conversations about the tax side of this. I'm trying to put together basically an alternative to Obamacare that is a free market alternative, where the employer can basically get the deduction just by sending a check to whatever designated account that you have that you purchase health insurance from. And then any money that is spent out of your pocket to purchase, whether it's basically any uncompensated care. Mm-hmm. So if you do choose a concierge service, if you haven't met your deductible, why are you having to pay taxes on that amount? And so we're trying to come up with a solution that would basically bust the market wide open and create a free market alternative.
Yeah, and because you all are still exempt, right? That never changed. Am I correct on that when it comes to Obamacare?
No, we're required to have Obamacare.
Okay, you are now? Because it wasn't that way for a while, correct?
I don't believe that there was an exemption. I believe members from when they passed it, the Republicans forced that amendment on, and it's stayed on ever since. Because all I know is that whenever I got elected, I had forgotten about that, and I was like, crap, I have to have Obamacare. Because my wife has insurance. I'm not even allowed to be on her plan.
Well, the one part of it again that it just is. There's so much of it. It is so screwed up that to me, even just trying to patch over here and fix over here is not ultimately the solution. Ultimately, the solution is that government's not involved at all. But I think one of
That's right.
one of the areas though, if I were allowed, like, okay, well, you can just pick one little ornament off that tree to take off and smash, it would be the fact that it's illegal to provide only catastrophic health insurance to people, because that cost us. Because of that setup, we spend so much more money than we have to for lesser health care in terms of quality. If it were not for that, we would have more of our own money, and we would be getting more for spending less. And that's the same way for virtually every American out there. And it is so damaging, and it's part of what makes me it makes me angry. It really does.
Yeah, it makes me angry too. I would say that, and that's where our solution is going, is something. So Gary Palmer's bill, which is kind of the core of what I think it's the core of this healthcare bill, is one that says it creates this off ramp from Obamacare into basically a mandate light insurance pool that would include catastrophic plans, and then you just leave Obamacare in place, and you say, look, if you want to stay in Obamacare, you go at it. But if you want a more affordable solution,
and better quality,
and you basically walk in and pick the plan that you want, right? And if you didn't pick the right plan, then make a better decision. It'll cause people to actually pay attention to what they're buying.
I know we're kind of short on time, but somebody had texted in. I actually have two more questions, but I want to get this one in first in case we run out of time. It seems random. Someone said on October 3rd, the 3-Eye Atlas was supposed to be in a position for the best picture to see what it is. Can we see the pictures of the massive thing above us, or is government going to keep those hidden? Now, I know very minimal of this. I remember hearing about it.
I don't know anything.
Okay.
I mean, I've followed some of it, but the reason I'd say I can't speak with authority about 3-Eye Atlas because I've seen so many articles that all say different things, and so it is all over the map what this thing is. What people believe it's doing, its trajectory, all of that. It's all over the map. So
and if I'm correct, it's something that, well, like you said, a lot of confusion, but it's something that's been observed. But we haven't been able to observe it for a period of time, if I'm correct, because of other obstacles in the way. And there was supposed to be this window where we would have a good visual of it. Is that correct?
Yeah, there was a window from one of the articles that I read where one of the countries in Africa was experiencing a thing where the moon was on the exact opposite side of the planet.
Right.
And so therefore the moon would not be illuminating the night sky. And it creates the darkest sky that you can have. And so within that sky, they had a window in order to take photos and try to take images of 3-Eye Atlas or whatever it's called. And they did, and that now there's all these reports of different things in which people are interpreting what the photos. But you're right, it was a short window of time to get that photo, and then this object, whatever it is getting ready to go on the other side of the sun, and we won't be able to see it until it comes back out the other side.
When it's too late. No, I'm kidding. And then final question, Congressman Burleson. Aside from just the mess of everything, and just as an observer in terms of the messaging, I've really enjoyed watching everything flipped upside down. Once upon a time, when there was a government shutdown, Republicans were always the ones that were retreating and taking all of the blame for it. But it has become so clear that Democrats are responsible for this, and even the media is just playing clips of, well, here you're talking about how horrible shutdowns are, and here you're talking about health care for illegal aliens, and it's just completely exploding on them. And then in addition to that, you have the Trump has managed to get them out there essentially arguing against sombrero memes as if that's like the real area of concern. And it is just so pleasurable to watch from a messaging perspective. I just didn't know if you had any thoughts on all that.
It, uh, whenever I was on the conference call with the Republican Party on a Saturday morning, and there were some old timers that chimed in and basically said to the rest of us who have never been through a shutdown, they said, you guys have no idea what a blessing that it is to be in this type of a shutdown where the Democrats are the ones that are losing the political fight. So because Republicans have been on the losing side of this for the last many shutdowns.
Congressman Burleson, thank you as always. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, Nick.
All right, have a great one. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 84. Tonight, cloudy with a low around 62. For your Tuesday, mostly cloudy with a high near 76. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny with a high near 77. And the Pyramid Roofing Company, a couple weeks ago, we had some severe storms roll through the listening area. And one thing that Josh wanted me to mention is that door knockers, they are out and about in full swing. And a lot of these people, they don't have your best interest in mind. They oftentimes use scare tactics, and they force you to sign what is called a contingency agreement. And once you sign that agreement, it is incredibly difficult to get out of. So before you go that route, make sure that you get a second opinion, and I recommend the Pyramid team. They're upfront, they're honest, and they offer free roof inspections for you. They also work with you through that insurance process without making you sign anything, and they offer discounts for our military and first responders on new roof installs. So if you have storm damage, or you're not sure but you just want to check to have that peace of mind, reach out to Josh today. You can find all of the contact information for the Pyramid Roofing Company under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
One of you had texted on the Pyramid Roofing Company text line that, part of the problem, of course, is just the golden parachutes. They cited specifically former Cox CEO. Just the what many people would consider to be sinful amount of payment that they get even after they no longer work there. And I've never been one that has a problem with private industry CEOs making all of this money, tons and tons of money. But to me, generally, it makes sense that that should be as a reward for progress, for success, not a failing system. And just, I don't know at this point, other than schools, but even more so than schools in terms of people's perception, that there's any industry that has been downgraded in terms of services as much as healthcare. I mean, you think about it. You think of any industry in which the quality of service, maybe second place would be the airline industries. Fair or not, I was talking about perception. Many of us talk about, back when we flew, you had to dress up and everyone was nice, and and now it's just like sometimes a bunch of drunk frat guys on a Greyhound bus, that and I think it's a combination of our culture and the passengers and the workers, and I don't think any one person's at fault, but the quality of service one gets flying in this country is not what it used to be. But I think that still that diminished quality of service doesn't hold a candle to the diminished quality of service of healthcare in this country today. Now, on one hand, again, it seems out of sorts to pay CEOs so much money to continue to run places into the ground. When you leave, things are worse off than they were when you started. And I'm talking in terms of actual service, not, oh, well, we got ranked by USA Today, or, well, we put out these surveys and we're the best this. I'm talking realistically. I think most of us recognize there is a massive divide between these industry ranking systems versus what we're actually getting. But on the other hand, I believe that there is a don't hate the player, hate the game component involved here, in which hospitals aren't able to focus on the patient any longer. The government has gotten so involved on a regulatory and micromanaging level that you and I, as the patient, we are the least of their priorities, and not by desire, but because of government. And yes, you have the insurance companies in there, but who dictates what insurance companies? This is a conversation I had with Congressman Burleson earlier, where they flat out, under Obamacare, made it illegal for us to buy catastrophic health insurance. Illegal. In a so-called free country. That is a service that is as illegal to provide an American as selling heroin. I mean, the punishments may be different, but point being is you're not allowed to do it. It is against the law. I don't even know how many people even realize that that's the case, which is another part of the problem. We have become so conditioned because of government being involved in every aspect of our health care we just kind of, we don't even think about it. We don't even know what's going on. Our company, of course it depends on your situation, but a lot of employees, well, all right, every year you're told, staying with the same insurance company. Well, you get those Zoom calls and, well, we managed to move some things around. So the good news is your out of pocket is going to be the same as last time around. And, or, well, it had to go up a little bit, but here's the added benefit. And we're just like, okay, it's not a free market system. It's not a system that even resembles a system that would exist in a free country where we're just told these things. Well, here's what you got. And part of what really angers me, and it does anger me, is that the lying pieces of trash who sold us on this, Obamacare, telling us how wonderful it was going to be. It's going to be cheaper. I don't even remember there was a very specific average amount that the average American would save on their insurance cost every year. I forgot how. It was a few $1,000 or something. What a joke. Remember, it's the one time Claire McCaskill was on. I think it was the one time on this program. And trying to sell all this crap. I mean, it's just lies. And when I was polite with her, explained why I felt that none of those things were true, her response is, well, what's your plan? No, You're the one who ran and said, elect me because I have all these great ideas, and you're the one that's out there trying to push this complete scam. You're not going to turn that around and say, well, what's your plan? They ran around lying. And then when the few voices of common sense noted that these things can't be possible and that you are going to potentially lose your doctors and your insurance, and then the cohorts in the media, I think it was the Washington Post, gave all the Pinocchios possible that they had to those claiming that you might lose your doctor or your insurance. Because one of the big lies out of pushing Obamacare was, if you like your insurance, you can keep it. If you like your doctor, you can keep it. And we're like, that's not going to work. Oh, we were called liars. 4 Pinocchios from Washington Post. It was. I believe it was declared the lie of the year. Of course, it turned out to be absolutely true. The way they've just screwed us over. And it's costing us so much more. And the amount of time, it was unimaginable if you had been told prior to Obamacare, and rhetorically, I'm sure these conversations took place, that, at a time when if you were sick and you called your doctor, we can get you in the next couple of days, that it may be months. Oh, you want to see your doctor? Oh, first off, well, we may be able to get you in a couple weeks, but do you mind not actually seeing your doctor? Oh, you want to see your actual, that may be 5 months. Or you need a new doctor? Well, that may be a year. I mean, I'm sitting here telling stories so many of you know. To get in to see specialists. Here's one to make sense of. This is a true story. My wife had gone in, I don't know, sometime last year. Just regular physical. And she asked the doctor, hey, can you just, do a skin check on me? Skin cancer. She's like, well, yeah, I can kind of look over you, but if you really want it done right, I can refer you to the skin people. Separate building. This is what they do. And my wife's like, okay, cool. Well, she didn't wait for them to call and refer. She just she was driving by and she walked in and said, hey, can I make an appointment? And they're like, oh, yeah, that's no problem at all. I think it was the next day and it was in a couple days they got her in. Okay. So after that, I had my annual physical. Same doctor. And my wife was on me. She goes, you need to have this. You got to make sure, she gave me a list of things that I needed to ask about. And so I said, yeah, my wife wants me to I said, she had it done. She wants me to, just have a thorough check and, just precautionary skin cancer. Oh, okay. And they told me the same thing. Well, we'll call, make a referral, and they'll call you to set up an appointment. Okay. This was just like a month later, a few weeks later. Now, unlike my wife, who drove by and just decided to go in one day, I thought, I'll wait. And it's like 2 days later, I get a call from the clinic, and they're like, yes, you were referred. And we're going to, okay. This was back in March. My appointment is this week. This week. That was the first available, they told me. Was mid-October. Early October. Now, of course, what with the discrepancy between my wife going in and being told, oh, yeah, we can sign you up for the next day versus going through the system and then instead it takes 8 months. I don't know. But it used to not be that way. Now, depending on your age, this may be the system that you know, but it did not used to be this way. I mean, even before my time, you watch the old Andy Griffith or these shows, somebody got sick, called, the doctor came over, Aunt Beeb got out her little pocketbook, paid some cash, and it was done. And you do have these, and Dr. John Lilly has talked about this, of course. He works for one, these, I always forget exactly what they call them, but it's more back to the old school way of doing things where you weren't feeling well, you call up, you talk to your doctor, you actually talk to your doctor. And with the advancements of technology, you get the Zoom call. So sometimes that can satisfy it, and I'll write a prescription. But you get right in. Pay a few $100 a month, maybe a couple hundred. Unlimited access to your doctor, not a 6-month wait, not a 4-month wait. Insurance isn't involved. And that would be fantastic for so many people. And then you buy catastrophic health insurance. So if you have a heart attack or you get diagnosed with cancer, insurance covers that. Obamacare made that illegal. You don't have that choice any longer. You have to buy the whole kit and caboodle. Such a scam. And then the layer cake of rage. You've got the added layer of the people who were responsible for this scam that has vastly diminished the quality of service in this country and made it more expensive are the same ones that are running around there today complaining about how horrible our healthcare system is. We've got to do something about this. Yeah, you did. Remember, you made it worse. Out there demanding that we double, triple, quadruple subsidize it because as poor as the quality has gotten over time compared to the way that it used to be, it's much more expensive. It's collapsing on itself to the point you have these rural hospitals closing down. And the architects of that, again, by way of Obamacare, they want to point the finger and, it's everybody else's fault. And for a political party, and this is on the Democrats, other than the fact that Republicans said they would repeal it and did not do it. So they are to blame in that capacity as a party. This is on the Democrats. And for a party that loves to point fingers and claim, a 9-year-old in some country you've never heard of died because she didn't get her medicine because Donald Trump cut aid to this organization and so forth. The number of people who will or have lost their lives because of a system that once upon a time you were referred to a specialist and you got in a week, and so whatever it was caught was early enough, but now it takes 6 to 8 months and it becomes too late. People die because of that. And by the way, that's the reason that you take out murders and car accidents, our life expectancy gets higher than our European friends. And when it comes to treatable diseases and disorders, I don't know what it is now, but I know prior to Obamacare, life expectancy was much longer for Americans, and it was all about time. Because the amount of time it would take, particularly when it comes to heart disease, heart issues, in order to see someone to get you on the right track would be days or weeks, where in Europe it would be months or years. And we're getting there. And just every time you hear one of these Democrats or people in the media open their mouth complaining about how we've got to fix this system, understand and remember, they are the ones who gave this to us. I've gone long. So many of you, I knew at talking about this issue, I'd get a lot of really great feedback and information about your situations. But I do have to jump right back to traffic here. I know it's repetitive, probably going to be the exact same report. But I wanted to read here one. Try being a senior citizen. I'm forced to have Medicare taken from my Social Security. I opted for a better plan, so I pay $154 a month over what is taken from my check. Because of the ridiculous state of Mercy and Cox doctors, I have Dr. Lilly, so that's even more money for my, quote, health care. I'm old enough to remember pre-government health care, and I want to go back to it. Yeah, I mean, the solution's not really that difficult to recognize. All you got to do is look at what we were doing when it worked. Government was not involved. But just like heroin, the dealer gets you addicted to where you fear the withdrawals of, and it's scare tactics, and they scare people. Listen to Democrats out there now claiming that if government doesn't subsidize on top of the subsidies that are already there for the broken system of Obamacare, people are going to die. They're literally saying people will die. They are using scare tactics to convince people to not go back to the way things were when it worked. Because and why? For a lot of them, it's the same reason. Again, heroin addicts get, or dealers get addicts addicted, because then they control them. Because then they are needed. And all of those particularly who pushed Obamacare, every time they need reelected, all they have to do is threaten, well, if you don't elect me, these horrible things are going to happen. I'm the one that controls you. These are not good people, and we're all suffering for it. And I'm going to run through a number of your text messages coming up here after the top of the hour news, which is in 60 seconds. Actually, it is in 60, no, wait, 75, 74, 73. Springfield's Talk 1041. Good Monday morning. My name is Nick Reed. If you were out at Farm Fest this weekend, you probably saw Ozarks Elder Law set up there. They were inside the Eplex, the West End, just a few down from St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements, in fact. And farming is a big focus for them, particularly at Farm Fest. Now, of course, when there's so much that they cover, we are constantly talking with Lori Rook of the different areas in which Ozarks Elder Law helps take care of people, make sure they're protected. But being Farm Fest, the focus there was keeping the farm. And too often people end up selling off the farms because they're told that they have too much in terms of assets. They're, quote, too rich to get qualified for Medicare. And so then what had been passed down for generations gets sold off unnecessarily. Ozarks Elder Law can build a strategy where you don't have to sell off that farm. And if you think, oh, well, we don't have a farm, we don't have to worry about that sort of stuff. Well, you're still going to have to pay for a nursing home if that is the sort of care you need one day. And there are 5 ways in Missouri that you can pay for nursing home care. As we get closer to that time, one by one, those options fall away to the point that you only have one, or maybe worse, even no options. And a lot of times you may think, what do I worry about? If it happens, it happens. Well, if it happens, odds are it's going to be happening to your kids. In terms of they're the ones that are going to have to figure out what it is to do, how it is that they're going to be able to take care of you. It's just best to pre-plan. There's no downside. Consultation to find out what you need to do to protect you, your land, your family. It doesn't cost you a thing. It's free consultation. 10 area locations. And then they tell you up front, once they determine what needs to be done, here's what the cost will be. One price. Whether it's not by time. So in other words, these aren't billable hours we're talking about. It's one price. You can get all the location information plus more at ozarkselderlaw.com, also under Nick's endorsements at KSGF.com. We were talking with Congressman Burleson in the previous hour and got to the issue of Obamacare. And just, I know so many of us have stories about the awful care. I mean, I could tell you, and I know you could tell me, horrific stories and just what has become of our medical system. And I have a lot of friends that are doctors, and many of them, they are just as, or if not more frustrated than we are. This is one of the ugly consequences of government trying to, quote, make everything work in its vision, is it ends up really genuinely pitting doctors against patients and patients against doctors. We used to have these relationships with our doctors and nurses. They were almost friends or family members. This is a family doctor, and they knew you knew them. There was this feeling of security going to your doctor. You just the environment, the culture was one in which you felt that you were a priority. You felt that they cared for you. And I'm not saying that those doctors don't still exist, but particularly when it comes to these large hospitals and the government mandates and regulations, they create a system in which that culture is almost impossible to maintain. Unless you do, like, again, what Dr. Lilly and so many others have done and kind of, as best as possible, get completely out of that system, no insurance, no mandate, none of that stuff, and starting as best as possible from scratch in a free market system way. And those patients do still get that experience. There are a lot of you who have had a number of doctor visits and may not even remember the last time you saw your actual doctor. I've talked with doctors who have been forced into these positions in which they get to where the patients annoy them because they're just given almost like telemarketers, these quotas. You have to get this many new patients. That's all that. It's just numbers, 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 numbers. It's all about numbers, not anything to do with the actual outcome of the service. Years ago, I was listening to, I don't even know, I don't recall who it was, but the story is what's important. And he was discussing the healthcare system and a conversation he had with a friend who grew up and may have been in government or even healthcare in the Soviet Union, talking about how part of the problem there, it was just all about numbers. That's all that mattered. The patient, that did not matter. But in the true bureaucratic way of things, government sets up this matrix, or they force hospitals to set up a matrix. And how do you prove your success? By numbers. Give yourself little grading systems, or how many of the, we have this many new patients. That must mean we're the best. Look, everyone loves us. And so the doctors in these hospitals oftentimes are just being hounded and hounded to get the numbers up, get the numbers up, get the numbers up, and so then you have longer waits, which means the patient is very aggravated and annoyed, and so you take what once upon a time in this country was a relationship in which your doctor was trusted and it was almost at times like this family member, and you had a trust there, to where it has been turned at times into this adversarial or just annoying conflict. Everything about it has been screwed up because of government. All right, some of your text messages. I'm in a spot with healthcare. I have the monthly medical membership, and I love it. But I'm concerned about some things that may be catastrophic, and I only have an HSA. I've been looking for catastrophic options before I get a diagnosis, but looks like I'm stuck. Government needs to stop proposing new, quote, better healthcare laws. Just remove laws and get out of my healthcare business. And this is what I brought up with Congressman Burleson. Obamacare made catastrophic health insurance illegal. I think there may be some extremely rare exceptions, but for the population at large, yeah, you either have to buy the whole thing or nothing at all, which that's not an option either, because you have to buy Obamacare. It is how these people that sold this as a good idea, they should all be in prison. They should be in prison. Another saying Republicans are to blame for Obamacare passing. If you remember correctly, John McCain was the deciding vote. No, Obamacare was in effect. And when Republicans were attempting to overturn it, there was a vote that was part of all of that in which McCain voted against the party and prevented. I don't recall if it was completely overturning Obamacare, but it was there were gasps. I remember when he did a thumbs down, and there was gasps throughout the Senate area, audibly, because they couldn't believe he did that. But that wasn't a vote for passage of Obamacare. That was John McCain's part in derailing the overturning of it. This is why we don't even carry health insurance. Thank God we're healthy. We don't need it. We just go to Freedom Health and pay out-of-pocket services. When we go, $90, that's it. Another, for most working people, health insurance costs per month are more than a car payment. And that's before you even need it. It's true. This from Dewey. Get a load of this one. I had surgery at Cox a month ago. They seriously asked me if I was pregnant. Dewey, by the way, is a man, clearly a man. We know Dewey. They asked me what gender I identified with.
Oh, goodness.
And I told them I don't identify as anything because I am what I am. And I'm a male. Oh, my God. Another saying, I might be completely wrong, but at one time a few years back, one of the hospitals in town went from a nonprofit mindset to a profit mindset. I do not go to a doctor or hospital much, but I definitely feel that I can notice piss poor service since they have changed their outlook on money. But there's a misunderstanding. Nonprofit doesn't mean that they don't make money. The profit in a free market system is what leads to the best care possible. This is why, like, profit in the cell phone industry or telephone industry or like industries that have the least amount of government involved, but profit is the final gate. That is where we as consumers benefit the most. That is where year after year the product gets better and more efficient and the prices come down. And, you know, especially when you figure in inflationary components. I mean, you go to Walmart, 70-inch HD TVs for $245. Do you know what those would cost if there was a forced insurance program that dealt with TVs and buying new TVs? They'd be more expensive today, and the technology would not be where it is. Because it doesn't have to be. There's no competition. Nobody has to compete for you. The problem is the customer, patient, not paying the bill. If the person getting the service gets the bill, things would change. Again, it is so jacked up. That is one of the many problems, but that's just one of the many layers of the catastrophically bad system that we have in place today. Okay, let's get latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair of the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 84. Tonight cloudy with a low around 62. For your Tuesday, mostly cloudy with a high near 76. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny skies with a high near 77.
One of you had noted, I can't think of a single thing that has ever gotten better because of government intervention. Agreed. I'll just note this again and then move on, because we oftentimes miss the obvious. I don't know in many of our lifetimes, let's say since the Johnson administration, that there has been any industry that government has gone from being not involved in to so involved in. I think it's fair to say. I'm trying to think. I can't think of any. There are a lot of industries, education, for example, but government's been involved in that from the beginning. Military is the same thing. But I think medicine is by far an industry that more than any has gone from government staying out of it to government in virtually every aspect of it. At the same time, I cannot think of any industry in which the quality of service has declined to such a degree over that same period of time. I mean, I can't. And again, I don't blame the doctors. I don't blame. I don't hate the player. I don't even blame the insurance companies, because you think insurance companies have a lot? Like I said, Obamacare made it illegal for insurance companies to even offer catastrophic health insurance, forcing them to cover pregnancies for men. So they are having these insane obstacles and regulations put in place. All of us are. That doesn't mean that insurance companies are otherwise absolutely wonderful. I'm not making that claim. But this insane system has been crafted by government that requires everyone involved to be focusing on the wrong thing. And maybe overly simplistic to look at it this way, but I cannot think of any industry, again, that has gone from so little government intervention to so much. And I can't think of any industry that has had such a decline in quality service for a lower cost than medicine. Costs have skyrocketed, quality has plummeted. Now, is that a coincidence? That the industry with the most government increased involvement has seen that as the result? Is that a coincidence? But what is the answer, at least according to one political party wholly? Oh, we need to do more of that. We need to do more of this massive amount of destruction. It's just so maddening. Now, someone had texted in, and I mentioned this to Congressman Burleson, and they exempted themselves from Obamacare as well. And that's how I also remembered it. Congressman Burleson noted, no, we have to be in the system also. I need to do some more research on it, because I don't remember how all of it, the way it played out, but I do remember at one point during Obamacare, and while Obama was arm twisting some Democrats who were opposed to it at the time, and many of us were sounding the alarm about exactly all of this that has happened. And there were notations that Congress was exempting itself. Well, that caused a number of lawmakers to change that. The one thing that I do know is that Congress is treated a little bit differently than other businesses are, and when it comes to Obamacare. But so to what degree that is and what that means, I don't know. But the full exemption is not something that is in play. But I had remembered it that way as well. And it must be because at the time there was so much discussion about it. Switching gears, Reuters reported on Friday that an FBI agent was fired for refusing to arrest and perp walk James Comey. Per Reuters, quote, an FBI agent was relieved of duty for declining to arrange a perp walk of the Bureau's former director, James Comey, in front of news media cameras after Comey was federally charged last month. 4 people briefed on the matter said on Friday. MSNBC also confirmed that the FBI fired an agent for refusing to play Comey's arrest. This is what Kash Patel posted regarding those reports. Breaking. MSNBC, still an ass clown factory of disinformation. Same circus animals that slobbered all over perp walks of Stone, Navarro, and Bannon. MSNBC has no facts and no audience. In this, FBI, follow the chain of command or get relieved. FBI Director Kash Patel. Now, I don't know if part of that, all of that, some of that is true, none of that is true in terms of the reporting from MSNBC and Reuters. Lord knows they don't have credibility, so you can't just trust them. But I think it's all worth it just to have MSNBC called an ass clown factory of disinformation. That is a very good description. They should put that. You know, sometimes you see the billboards up and like it'll have the. Didn't MSNBC change their name anyway? They're not MSNBC anymore, are they?
They did.
Yeah, didn't they change their name? I don't even know what it is. But that would be a great little, like, whatever the, MSNBC, and then in quotes, like, when there's a movie review, the New York Times, the greatest movie ever seen, and then MSNBC, Ass Clown Factory of Disinformation. That'd look good on a T-shirt or a mug.
Their new name is MS Now,
Oh,
which
that's
stands for My Source for News, Opinion, and the World.
Well, yes, that's right. I recall because when it first came out, many people noted it sounded as if it was promoting multiple sclerosis, like MS Now, yeah! And a lot of people thought that just does not seem like a good name. Well, clearly it's not memorable. Streaming live, KSGF.com, also on YouTube. It is the video version of the show, and we are in studio. You can watch the show in addition to listen to it. Share it if you'd like to. Feel free to do that. It is Springfield's Talk 1041. Of course, we also have the app. It's one I definitely recommend. In fact, when Farm Fest, there was a guy who had come up to us, and our AM tower was destroyed by storms in the spring sometime, and he had mentioned where he lives. That was what he was able to hear us on, is that AM. He can't on the FM. And so we're like, "What? Do you have the app?" And he's like, "Well, you have an app? Didn't know." And so shame on us for not mentioning that more often. Yeah, you can download that app and just easily listen on your phone. And the podcasts are right there available at your fingertips, so it's got some great usage for you. Plus, you can easily, just with the tap of a button, don't even have to remember the Pyramid Roofing Company text line in order to send us messages. It'll just automatically populate that area with the number, so all you have to do is put your message. KSGF app, find that in your marketplace.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First, meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by J&S Automotive. Today we'll see mostly sunny skies with a high near 84. Tonight, cloudy with a low around 62. For your Tuesday, mostly cloudy with a high near 76. And taking a look at Wednesday, sunny with a high near 77. And Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air want to give them a huge thank you for sponsoring our hand fans out there at Fall Farm Fest over the weekend. Even outside, they were trying to keep us cool. And I do want to give you a reminder for all of your HVAC needs. The Foreman team, they have got you covered. From simple repairs to tune-ups to annual seasonal inspections to new unit installs, the Foreman team, they do it all. And the Foreman team, they also offer indoor air quality testing. And that test, it can help identify allergens that are inside of your home. And then the Foreman team, they come up with a plan to reduce those allergens and help you breathe a little easier this fall. So if it is time to have the Foreman team out to your home, reach out to Russell today. You can find all of the contact information for Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
Talking about how much we've all been screwed over by government, specifically led by Democrats when it comes to health care. It literally made my stomach burn. I give myself ulcers talking about it. It's just so I now, when I was a kid and we would learn about other countries, Soviet Union, for example, in which you really didn't have rights when it came to certain things. Government just made these decisions for you. And I just thought how awful that would be. That you just didn't have those freedoms. And I couldn't imagine what it's like. And I know what it's like now. And when you're talking about medicine and government making it illegal for people to sell catastrophic health insurance and creating all these rules and these are the things that this is the life that as a kid, growing up in the 80s and early 90s, you would learn about. This is what makes us better than other countries. Other countries, they try to run everything. Try to run private industry, and you just don't get much say in it. The consumer is irrelevant. You're told as a consumer what you will want and what will be good for you, and then the government tells that industry, here's how you're going to do it, here's what you're going to be offering, and then that's just what you have to deal with. And I always thought, what a horrible, horrible thing, and particularly because the outcome was bad. It'd be one thing if it had actually made things better, and you're like, well, the trade-off is you don't have freedom, but your life's better. It doesn't work that way. You lose your liberties, and your life's worse. It made my stomach hurt. Amazon deletes guns from every single James Bond film poster. So dumb. I'm just so tired of stupid people. Today, just a little bit of unfiltered, just letting it out. Amazon Prime has excited spy movie fans by relaunching all James Bond's films, but fans have also noticed an odd thing about the poster Amazon is using to celebrate the actors who have starred in the franchise. All of their guns are missing from every single one of the posters.
So what's there instead?
Nothing? It just looks dumb. I mean, like, look here. So here's GoldenEye, Pierce Brosnan. You can kind of see.
This looks stupid.
I know. It just.
Oh, these people.
To hail the return of the 007 catalog of films, Amazon put out a graphic featuring a thumbnail image of every Bond film and the actors starring in them. But some fans noticed there's something off about some of the photos. It turns out that a few of the photos originally show the actors holding his, and because not all of the posters did, but a lot of them obviously did, showed the actor holding the trusty semi-automatic pistol or some other firearm in his hand, but in the Amazon poster, the guns have been removed from the image, leaving 007's hand posed in an odd position. Or in some cases, such as the image from Spectre, Amazon just cropped the pistol out of the photo entirely. I mean, it's just dumb. And what rationale can you give? Well, guns are just the movie. That's what the movies are. What you're going to take a stance on the promotion of firearms by not promoting them? Well, except for in the actual movie we're trying to get people to watch. So we'll entice people to watch the movies in which lots of people use guns and lots of people shoot each other with guns, but we're going to take some sort of moralistic stance against firearms by not actually having the imagery of the firearm. Arguably, think about it. I mean, let's just go ahead and get outside of this world of logic, and let's just start thinking, crazy like the lefties. This is actually worse, right? Because you might be luring unsuspecting people who aren't familiar with the idea of firearms into watching a film that otherwise they may not watch, because you have taken away the warning of the existence of firearms in the films by removing it from the poster. This is how dumb these people are. They'll put before a film a warning that, now there's going to be smoking in this movie, just so you have a heads up, so that, if you don't want to watch it, or the trigger warnings, right? Have these trigger warnings. Yeah. Just so you know, this film has this in it. So if that's the sort of thing that upsets you, we're letting you know ahead of time that it's in there so that you don't get triggered and get lulled into watching or lured into watching something you didn't know what you were watching. Well, does that logic not apply to this as well? Maybe they get triggered by the use of firearms and they don't know anything about James Bond's films. And, at least if the original poster with him holding the gun, that's a warning to them. Like, well, I don't want to watch that because I don't like gun violence. You take the gun out, they have no idea. They're like, well, that just looks like a charming guy. This must be a rom-com. Now, obviously, that sort of scenario is ridiculous. But again, we're talking about the way that the left thinks in their minds. Screwed up. They're nutty. We can also throw this into that. Here's another great one. Just great story. A Washington teenager said she was stunned after a Build-A-Bear store manager refused to print the name of slain conservative commentator Charlie Kirk on her plush toy's birth certificate.
I saw that.
What sort of sicko do you have? I mean, these people on the left are just so filled with hate and nastiness and meanness. Evi McCormick, 16, told Seattle's King 5 that the incident happened September 26th at the Build-A-Bear workshop inside South Center Mall in Tukwila, Washington. McCormick said she and her friends were at the mall when she decided to make a bear in honor of the Turning Point USA founder who was assassinated last month. The idea has been trending on TikTok. Quote, I was just mesmerized and captivated that he could speak with such elegance, McCormick said in the report. He was a role model. A Washington teenager, according to McCormick, after she finished making the custom bear, an employee refused to print Kirk's name on the certificate. Printing the quote, birth certificate has long been part of the store's in-person experience, allowing customers to name their new toy. Quote, she just didn't agree with it. She didn't support it. She told me, we're not doing this. Folded it up in a force and threw it away. The teen said that she was so rattled that she handed her card to a friend, Kaylee Lang, to pay for the bear and walked away. It definitely made all of us uncomfortable. After another store manager at the location declined to comment to the local news outlet, a customer service rep at Build-A-Bear's corporate office told King 5 the matter was being handled internally. Amber McCormick, Evie's mother, said she also spoke with someone at corporate headquarters for nearly an hour and was offered a $20 gift card for poor customer service. It's because that was the problem. Here you go. Now you can have $20 off the next time you want to get treated like crap at Build-A-Bear. Days later, the company reached out to McCormick again to apologize and admitted the incident should not have happened. She said Build-A-Bear told her they would train employees in their Seattle area to avoid bringing politics into the workplace. Does it really need training? Maybe we all have different ideas of what training... To me, that's not really training. It's It's like saying, well, we need to train people not to come to work with the F word printed across their shirt. That doesn't really require training. You just tell them don't do it. And if they don't comply, you write them a verbal warning. And then if they do it again, you write them up. And then if you do it again, then you write them up again. And then if they do it again, then you come up with an agreement plan on how to correct the behavior. And then finally, after 80 different warnings and write-ups, then you finally can terminate them. This doesn't take training. Plus, I don't know that you can really train someone not to be a bad person. It takes more than some 30-minute video on how to be a great Build-A-Bear builder. McCormick said that the Build-A-Bear employee told her their goal is to try to prevent this sort of thing from happening to anyone else. You know, I mean, honestly, the best sort of training company-wide is to immediately fire the person who did it and then make sure everyone knows that that firing happened. That will train people pretty quickly. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Last week, we talked a little bit about the attempted assassin of Brett Kavanaugh. And he was facing 30 years, I want to say, for attempting to assassinate a Supreme Court justice. To me, that seems like what should actually be the bare minimum. You seriously attempt to take someone's life. I just think that should be treated as if you succeeded. And it seems like if you try to rob a bank and fail, don't you essentially get charged with the same? I mean, is attempted robbery and robbery not the? Maybe it's not. I don't know. But I just think if you seriously, like, you get to the point, as this individual did, showed up with weapons in order to kill the guy, and you show up at his house, you're stopped only because your sister, who knew what you were doing, called 911. You should just go to prison for the same amount of time as if you had killed him. 30 years, though, was what the Department of Justice was asking. In fact, prosecutors said that the would-be assassin should face at least 30 years. Now, you throw into the mix the fact that, many of you may not have known this is a transgender individual. Yes, another trans assassin or attempted assassin. And the individuals, or the individual family members, showed up and argued in court before the judge for leniency and compassion, and went so far as to say that he, who I forget what he goes by now, some chick's name, shouldn't have to serve any time at all because he deserves to live a stress-free life transitioning to a woman at home with family. Well, this is a Biden-appointed judge. Knocked it down to 8 years for attempting to assassinate, for political purposes, a Supreme Court justice. 8 years instead of a minimum of 30, which was what prosecutors were arguing should have been the sentence. You want to tell me that the left is not the party of violence? Now, this federal judge who sentenced the defendant to only 8 years, being criticized, of course, by conservatives, Judge Deborah Boardman, a Biden appointee, sentenced Roski to only 8 years in prison for attempting to assassinate Kavanaugh in June of 2022. The sentence clearly much more lenient than what the Department of Justice has sought, with prosecutors saying that he should face at least 30 years. The judge said during a sentencing hearing that while Roski's actions were reprehensible, she also considered a string of mitigating factors, including the fact that Roski spontaneously confessed to and cooperated with police. You have Chuck Grassley going to X, noting Maryland U.S. District Judge Deborah Boardman, a Biden appointee, national disgrace. Oh, sorry, that was Mike Davis, a conservative lawyer and strategist and former chief counsel for Chuck Grassley. Noting she only sentenced to 8 years instead of 30, someone who attempted to murder Justice Kavanaugh and his family in their home. Make no mistake, today's Democrats want conservatives killed. Of course they do. If this isn't signaling, you think in particular, when you're younger, time just, when you get older, you're like, you just see time differently. But you have some deranged Democrat activist who's in his 20s, and this judge has just sent the signal that if you try to assassinate a top political figure that's conservative, now, if they succeed, that's the goal that they want. But what if they fail? Don't worry about it. You may just get less than a third of the time that you should get. Instead of, you would think being a fellow judge, there would be some sense of the message that this sends. They're trying to murder a judge. It's not that big of a deal. It's not nearly as big of a deal as it could be. I mean, come on. See, this is a left-winger. This is a Biden-appointed judge. So if you are going to try and assassinate, and this individual did it in order to try and alter the outcome of a Supreme Court case. After Chuck Schumer made his little speech there on the Supreme Court steps, threatening Kavanaugh and Gorsuch as well, and any Supreme Court justice that might rule in a way that overturned Roe v. Wade, he said, you won't know what hit you. And this trans would-be assassin was activated and went on social media prior to it on Reddit saying that it wasn't just Kavanaugh. He was going to take as many of the conservative Supreme Court justices out as possible to try to get enough to prevent Roe v. Wade from being overturned. There's a very clear line between what Chuck Schumer and the media and Democrats were saying to exactly what it is that he tried to do. I guess if you're going to do this, and if you're going to fail at it, just cross your fingers and hope you get before a liberal judge. 8 years. This guy is in his 20s, 30s. He's clearly going to be out. Jeez. Oh, and this story, I got to take a quick break here. Democrat nominee for Virginia Attorney General, deeply sorry for fantasizing about murdering Republican lawmakers, urinating on his grave, and watching his kids get killed. Incidentally, no Democrats are calling for him to drop out. And a former Biden advisor is saying, well, it was a private text conversation, so it's okay. Sure it is if you're on the left, because you're the party of violence. How about some kind yet consistent words regarding Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty? Having Emily with House Theory Realty represent us, wonderful experience. She's incredibly professional, thorough. Her communication with us, superb. I'm sure she worked with many clients at once, but had that special way of making my husband and me feel like we were her top and only clients. Her advice and support, helping us really narrow down our search area and home needs, was invaluable. She's polite, available, friendly, very knowledgeable. She always seemed to ask the great questions I did not think to ask. This is the real estate agent you want on your side. I look forward to working with Emily again in the future should our home needs change. And that, again, consistent. You can read reviews on Google, on Zillow, on Facebook, and you're going to see that consistent, specific sort of message from people who have utilized Emily Johnson House Theory Realty. The Democratic Party's nominee for Virginia Attorney General Jay Jones has said he's deeply sorry for fantasizing about killing a Republican lawmaker. Jones was asked about his disgusting comments in an interview with ABC 8 News reporter Tyler Englander. Quote, "A lot of politics is about trust," Englander said. "I can think of nothing more horrific than a mother having to hold her dying child. How can Virginians trust a man who said something horrific, so horrific and callous? Well, again, I'm deeply sorry for what I said, and I wish that it hadn't happened, and I would take it back if I could." Well, yeah, now that it's become a potential liability for your power grab. And so these were text messages that he was texting around to some colleagues. Among others, quote, "If these guys die before me, I'll go to their funeral to piss on their graves," adding he would send them out awash in something, talking about Republicans. He then said hypothetically he would kill then Republican Speaker Todd Gilbert instead of murderers like Hitler and Pol Pot. Jones then escalated his comments during a follow-up call with another lawmaker, insisting politicians, quote, "must feel pain themselves," comparing it to the anguish of parents who witnessed their children being killed. And then, fantasizing about his political opponents having to go through that pain. Not a single Democrat has called for him to step down. Trump derangement syndrome is something that one of the many symptoms is the inability for people to enjoy life at all. Listen to this town hall story. Leftists, talking about Reddit, leftists using the platform to call for attacks on ICE facilities and agents, and the site is populated by lunatics who think January 6th is worse than 9/11, the Holocaust, driven by a deep hatred of Trump and conservatism, which is why one Reddit user is upset that prices at Costco are coming down. So this left-winger posed, "I go to Costco every week. It's probably the one thing I do consistently. I've been doing it for years. Has anybody noticed the prices going down lately? Everything's discounted. I'm not talking promo tags or little markdowns. I mean, the whole shelves, items, 20, 40% across. Not seasonal either. This isn't normal. Prices are supposed to be going up with tariffs and inflation, shipping costs, whatever. Instead, they're dumping inventory aggressively. Either demand is collapsing or something upstream is forcing their hand. Maybe it's nothing, but probably not." So even when things are getting better, Trump derangement syndrome means something is getting worse.